Welcome back to Be Productive. One of the things I hear from people all the time when I lay out strategies, systems, and tools to them is I hear, yeah, but how is that going to work for me? This is why I always talk about one size does not fit all. We can have some basic parameters, but when you are working with a true trusted advisor, they understand how to take this knowledge and tailor it to your needs. When we are talking about information systems and more importantly, the protecting of all these information systems that we have, we want to make sure that we have something that is designed and tailored specifically to us. So, to talk about how we can use some of these items and use them in whatever industry you're in is my friend Greg Schaefer. So, Greg, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
I'm really excited about this conversation because, you do so much with helping people protect their intellectual property, to protect their systems, and to guard against, people breaking in and getting hacked. And I think sometimes people think, oh, I don't need that. My company's too small, or I don't really feel that I need that in my industry. And one of the things that I've learned from talking with you for so many of our segments is that you really can work with people across the gamut. So I would love to talk about why is this so important and how can the services that you provide really vary and cover every different industry platform that's out there?
The basics of cybersecurity and information security overall are constant across all industries. And a good way to illustrate this is that think about vehicles on the road. So you have cars and trucks and SUVs and semi-trailers and police cruisers and motorcycles and so on. So they're all different there, but each one of them has a common element. They all have tires. So a tire is the common element, just like cybersecurity, where we have some common elements, like, for example, encryption in transit, making sure it's scrambled when you send it across the internet, regardless of the industry. Now, what we do, therefore, is that we consult businesses to build information security programs focused on frameworks first and industry compliance second, rather, because the frameworks can be more adaptable to different regulations. So one framework, we've talked about this before, is the NIST cybersecurity framework. It's great for small and mid-sized businesses. If you align well to NIST CSF, you're going a long way already to being compliant with some of the additional requirements that is specific for your industry. And then the strategy kind of diverges a bit based on the type of data that's involved in the mission of the industry. So let me give a couple of examples here. In banking, well, that involves obviously financial data. That's the data that's involved. And the mission is to facilitate financial transactions and build wealth and that sort of thing. And then healthcare, on the other hand, involves personal health information and the mission of saving lives and maintaining health. So because of this, different industries have developed different regulatory requirements.
Mhm. Yeah, that is, fascinating. I love the analogy you used about the different vehicles, but that the tires. And I think that's a really great way to lay it out. You just gave a couple of examples, but I would love to hear just from your personal being. You've been doing this for many years. What are some examples that you have of working with some different industries?
Well, I could provide many, but in the interest of time, I'll just do a couple. I'll first of all talk a little bit more about financial institutions, banks and credit unions. So they are beholden to what we call the Federal Financial Institutions Examination Council, or FFIEC. It's a lot of letters there, but FFIEC mandates certain requirements are met by banks and credit unions based on their inherent risk. And what does that mean? Well, that means that it's dependent upon the size and the services that these organizations offer. So the size of the assets, for example, that the bank or credit union has, or if they provide international wires, those sorts of services. And there's also, like, depending upon their location, sometimes if they're over a large geographic area, that presents more risk. So the bank or the credit union then must meet standards based on that inherent risk, and it's a level from 1 to 5. And all banks and credit unions are examined by regulators that fall underneath the FFIEC. You probably have heard of some of these. So in banking, we've got the FDIC, they insure your deposit. Same thing with the OCC, which is the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. And then for credit unions, it's the NCUA. Now, another example is probably even more related to a lot of the small businesses and medium businesses out there, are taking payments via credit and debit
Mhm.
cards. Um, if you do that, you have to be compliant with payment card industry's data security standard, or PCI DSS, because we love acronyms. And there are two different categories there. One is the service provider category, which I'm going to put off to the side for a moment. And then one is the merchant, which is more applicable probably to most of the businesses out there. The merchant one is where you actually take the card. Now, depending upon how many transactions that you do per year will determine what level of self-attestation that you have to do. So it's kind of similar to the banking thing based on your inherent risk. If you're really, really, really taking a lot of transactions, you may have to actually be audited. Now, don't look at the self-attestation as being a way out of having a solid information security program just because you don't have somebody else examining or auditing you. Remember that you're still responsible for your information no matter what. And you do not want to go light on these self-attestations, because worst case scenario, you have a breach, you say that you were compliant, and they find out, they being like one of the card providers like Visa finds out that you weren't, you're going to lose the ability to take your cards, and that's going to severely impact your business. Now, interestingly enough, some organizations have multiple challenges here, and this is why the framework idea really helps. Some banks and credit unions, for example, may be required to be PCI compliant, both as a merchant and a service provider.
Mhm.
So it's just like clinics and personal health information.
Yeah. Wow. I really hope you're not going to quiz me on any of these acronyms that you just went over, because I've already lost them all out of my head. But so many things, and that one example you gave about the credit cards. Again, if you're not compliant, you could lose the ability to take those types of payments. And what would that do? I know that I've been at places and I'm like, "Oh, I have Mastercard," and they're like, "No, we only take Discover or something." So I think it's really important that we do this. Now, I would imagine that many people think, I can't afford to bring a service like this on. They're thinking they're not a huge corporation, they're not a huge global company. And even though you work with all different companies, you really do specialize in the smaller to mid-sized businesses. And you actually do this all virtually. So tell us a little bit about how bringing somebody on virtually can be just as helpful and maybe even more beneficial than having somebody on staff and on site for you.
Well, many virtual CISOs, including us, we've worked with clients across multiple industries, and this allows us a much deeper perspective of information security overall than if we focused on a single industry. Now, there are some folks that focus on a single industry and they're great at what they do there. But for us, coming from varied backgrounds, it also has the benefit of we can train each other. Like, for
Mhm.
example, our senior virtual CISOs, just taking a few, for example, one has a deep healthcare background. One is very much an expert with government contracts. And then I'm more of a financial services expert, but we learn off of each other, and therefore we become a better resource to um, different clients across all different industry.
Yeah.
A well-rounded virtual CISO can address many different industries then that maybe don't fall neatly into those buckets.
Mhm.
Um, as I mentioned at the beginning of the segment, if we align to a standard framework such as NIST CSF, then map to the industry specific needs, that's where the virtual CISO adds value, because we're all experts in doing those mappings. And that's another reason why I also advise folks that carefully vet your virtual CISO potential provider. Make sure that they have the ability to work mapping different regulations and standards to different frameworks.
Yeah, I really think that's a key indicator that you hit on, the idea that you are able to bring in your partners. And again, you need to have people who have the background in what it is that you need so that you have all those areas covered. Just like surgeons have their specialties, a lot of the virtual CISOs do the same thing. So again, really doing your due diligence. Now, one of the things I love that you do is you really do a lot of work on the front end in that intake process, because again, you want to make sure you're bringing on the right people and that people know the best fit for them. And one of the ways that you do this is you always offer a free consultation with them. So if somebody did want to book a free consultation and learn more about the processes and the systems that you can provide, what's the best way for people to find you?
The best way is to go to our website at vcisoservices.com. There's a button on the front page which says something along the lines of book a consultation. And that'll give 15 minutes with myself or one of our senior virtual CISOs. And we can then discuss your potential needs there. And if you don't want to do it that way, you can fill out our contact form, or we have a phone number on the website too that you can call, and we'll get right back to you if we're not in the office at that time.
Perfect. Well, great. Thank you so much. And for all of you that are watching, these partnerships, sometimes we don't think about them. When we're putting together our business plans and looking at the trajectory of our business, we don't think about needing somebody on the security system side. But you know what? They are going to help you. And we need to put these plans into place because, again, the name of the show, it's all about being productive. So stay tuned because we'll be right back and we'll be bringing you more Be Productive.